This Rwanda coffee, I think,
That's what I'm drinking.
this is a special coffee. I took it off from Royal Coffee. I've never tried it. They had a shipment that came in. Camilo suggested that I try it, and I really like it. Don't you?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a little fruity. Got a subtle sweetness to it.
it does. Yeah.
Um, it checks a lot of boxes. And I think anybody that enjoys coffee, I feel like this is kind of like Timor, where I think it can appeal to a broad audience of coffee
Yeah.
drinkers.
Camilo, I said, so what does the coffee taste like? He said, well, it's like brown sugar, black
Yeah.
tea, lemon. Those were the adjectives he used.
Brown sugar for sure.
And I tend to agree. Yeah, it is like our coffee Timor. To me, Timor is such a quality coffee, and it's deep, complex. It's hard to really come up with a description of it.
Yeah, besides, creamy, smooth,
Yeah, and
the classic, a little slightly generic, but
it's one of the reasons why Timor has continually been at the top of our list every year.
Yeah. Well, I feel like other people are catching on now as well, because I feel like a long time you would never see that coffee.
Rarely do you see it anywhere.
Yeah, but now I feel like I've seen Starbucks is using it. A few big guys are using it.
You've seen it in Starbucks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or I've not seen it with my own eye, but I've
you've
heard from friends that bought our coffee. They go, "Oh, you guys sell Timor coffee?" And I go, "Yeah." It's like I've had the Starbucks one. So
Wow, that's
okay, well,
very unusual.
no wonder we have to put some on reserve now.
Well, yeah, Royal Coffee has been buying a lot of the crop. It's a small island,
Yeah.
and it's actually a portion of the island of Timor. The Indonesian government basically went to war with the inhabitants of Timor. They're ethnically a different people, and they fought for their freedoms. Uh, the flag has a white star on it. Timor Leste is the official name of the country.
So is it a different? It's its own country.
It's its own country. It's at the very end of the east end of the Indonesian chain that comes from Sumatra and comes all the way down.
Is it a Muslim country?
Well, that's the thing. Indonesia is a Muslim
Right.
country, but Timor, I don't think they're a Muslim nation. It's originally a Dutch colony. In fact, these coffee plants are planted by Dutch farmers in the 1600s.
Wow. So
it's
that's some history right there.
Yeah, it's a delicious coffee. Yes, very delicious. So, Lucas, serving a cup of life. That's what we're doing here at the Rio Coco Cafe. That's the name of our podcast, Serving a Cup of Life. We decided to start our coffee business, first of all, to make money to pay our teachers when our school project was in its heyday with 1,600 kids, 14 schools scattered along the Coco River. We had met some farmers at the Young Life camp. They were growing coffee, and we had the idea to start buying Nicaraguan coffee and roasting it and selling it to make money to pay our teachers, which has been a very good source of income for them. But we realize that coffee is the friendship drink, and it creates community. When you have a cup of coffee with a friend, it's a good conversation thing.
It's a very natural thing.
Very natural. And a lot of our conversations that we've talked about here on the Cup of Life, we've talked about events happening in the world, but there's always the backdrop that you and I get to of what's going on in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in America, when we start talking about the spiritual world, they look at us like, are you guys like on some sort of weed? Or you've been smoking weed or something? They don't perceive it as something that's real.
Yeah.
It's
well, it's just foreign.
Well, it's foreign, and now, but as you know, on the Coco River, when we talk about the spiritual world there, everybody lights up because they know it exists.
Right.
It's very real there.
Yeah. Well, I think Well, I think a part of what the at least for first world culture, I would say, and specifically more America, my generation is the spoiled generation, is the way I kind of see it. Because we have your dad, that generation went and fought a world war, gave up comforts, gave up home, gave up their lives to ensure a better world for their kids.
Which they
ultimately,
right. That was the
and
goal.
they did that. And so now you grew up in post World War II very closely, and then for me, a kid born in the '90s, very post World War II, and almost like
Forgotten.
maybe a bit forgotten, but so well accommodated in the sense that we didn't have to do anything crazy in our 20s. We didn't have to go get in boats and planes and invade Europe to stop a dictator from taking over European culture, right?
Well, he had taken it over and he was killing a lot of people.
Right. So there's things that older generations dealt with so we could be free of that life, ultimately. And I think when you don't have anything bigger than yourself right in your face to live for, I feel like it's really easy to flail out and to place value in things that ultimately don't fulfill your soul. Like making money, for instance, is a big one. I think a lot of guys in my age bracket, it's all about how much money you make and what watch you're wearing and what car you're driving.
Right.
All these boxes to be checked versus what have you done for somebody else? How have you been of service to people in your community?
Right.
And there's all these little things, I think, that have added up to a lot of mental unwellness in my generation and the one after, because it's like we don't recognize our need for a savior. It's not even on our radar, for one. And there's nothing super obvious to put our time and effort and soul into that's bigger than ourselves.
Yes.
With the absence of God and a relationship with Jesus in your life, I think that's a very natural path for man to take. And without things like a world war or impending this or that, we're kind of left to our own devices of deciding what's important and what matters in life, and what, like I said, what kind of things give you conviction, to change your ways and to mature, and to become a person of status, I guess.
When I was in my 20s, of course, I was in the Navy, and the Navy was telling me what to do and where to go. And then when I got out of the Navy and I moved to Colorado and became a ski bum with my friend Joe Tanner, we were just living for the day, for the moment.
Right.
But at the same time, we were kind of asking ourselves the question of what's our life going to be? What can we actually do to challenge ourselves? Because you need a challenge in life, The Navy challenged us. Skiing the mountain, Vail, Colorado at the time had one of the best ski mountains in the world. And we challenged ourselves daily on mastering it. And
before that, you were challenging yourself to fly planes at a high level.
Very high level, right. So there was always the challenge there. And then once I got out of the Navy, I recognized, wait a minute, I don't think there's too much challenging me here.
Yeah.
And at the time, when you're letting yourself just party along with everybody else, you can kind of get lost in just experiencing the moments. But you realize the moments are not that fulfilling in the end.
It was very fleeting.
Fleeting. They're very fleeting. And so then the background of my mind, to just kind of go along with your thought here, was I was looking for something that was worth my total effort to throw myself in.
Yeah. As a human being, I think you you absolutely need that, or something we call depression sets in your mind, your
Right.
mental space.
Yeah.
It's inevitable, I think.
And I didn't have that, and I thought, well, I got a job working at a hotel in Vail. Marriott came in and bought the hotel. Now I'm a Marriott employee. I see, well, maybe it's the hospitality, the hotel business that's going to challenge me. And I realized, okay, at the end of the day, I'm serving food, I'm making money for somebody, and then you're thinking about your own business, making money. I saw a lot of people with money that they weren't really that happy. I was going for the experience, but I was kind of oblivious to the spiritual world going on around me. I was almost deadened in that aspect. But when I had my trip to Maui and I got pulled into Hope Chapel, and my girlfriend Bonnie, who was a sorceress, she was a warlock, as she described.
That's cool. Yeah.
Beautiful girl, great skier, pleasant personality. But the girl could read your palm, and she chanted a lot, and there was some undercurrents there. But that was a period in my life that was the fall of 1981 that my life took a turn, because when that spirit that was in her manifested and spoke to me that night, and I had a conversation where this voice came out of her, and she wasn't moving her lips or moving her jaw, and it was a very gravelly tone. I will never leave this body. I said, what? I've become very accustomed to this body, you know. Uh, she wasn't playing around me. That was very real. And I decided that night when that happened that there was a spiritual world that I was a part of, and I was straddling the fence between good and evil, and I knew I belonged on the good side, and suddenly everything changed. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens when a person, you know, Jesus talks about being born from above, born again. He says it's kind of a required thing. It's in our culture we talk about born again Christians like there's some radical fringe group, but when you read what Jesus talks about, especially in his conversation with Nicodemus in John chapter 3, he said, Nicodemus, you're the teacher of Israel. You are the most learned guy here. You're the one with the most experience, and yet you don't know what it means to be born again, to be born of the Spirit. And what I notice is when we all have that moment, I've talked to people, and some people say, yeah, that day that I received Jesus, I knew something in my life changed, and driving home for that day, the sky was bluer, the trees were greener, everything changed. And your sister, Moselle, when she came back from that encounter at church that one weekend, I don't know if you remember, but I think she was probably 11 or 12. And she walked in and she looked at us, she said, everything has changed. Mm. And one of the things that I notice is most people realize life becomes much more dramatic because they recognize they're in this spiritual world where there's a war going on, that those fallen angels that are mentioned in Revelation chapter 12 that have been cast down upon earth and they wage war against God's people, they're very active.
Yeah.
And you have had some experience with that, haven't you?
Definitely. I think most of my conscious life I've felt connected to the spiritual world. And I think for better or for worse, there's never been a time that I can remember where I didn't think, well, there is definitely a being out there that is communicating with me. And it's always been a present factor in my life, I think.
Well, the enemy, the leader of the other side, I think you once told me about some dream or some vision you had where he seemed like a nice guy.
Right, very, very enticing, for sure. And I think in that dream, what I also saw was how my choices had debilitated myself to be effective for the kingdom. And that was very sombering and very real, because I could see how I had become ineffective, at that time in my life.
There was but I think when you told me that dream that day, you remember you woke me up early and you said, "Have you ever read Dante's Inferno?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, I've read parts of it." I said, "Why?" And you said, "I had a dream where I was taken down to the bottom circle of
Yeah.
hell." And that the way you described it, it seemed like, wow, this was a very much not just a figment of your imagination. This was a very theologically correct
Yeah.
dream. And Satan seemed like a nice guy that was beckoning you to come, right?
Yeah.
And along the way, as I remember you telling, there were things were happening to other people at the time. I think if I got it. And eventually all those people that you helped along the way.
Yeah. There was a choice.
Tell us about this, yeah.
There was a choice along the journey through hell, which is what this dream kind of was, and it felt like I was there a while. There was people there where I could condemn them. It was like I was a hell employee or something, and it was like condemnation or redemption, forgiveness, and it was like I had the choice. It was very video gamey. I played a lot of video games growing up. It was like save or kill, and in most cases I saved, right? And so at the end of the dream, this
you were at the bottom one,
which
was
frozen lake,
a frozen lake,
yeah,
right?
just like how it's kind of described in the book, which I didn't read the book up until I still haven't read the book, but I didn't know about it. And so to have that imagery, and then
what was in the frozen part of the lake?
There was people, and like Judas, how it's described in the book, he's there.
And what did Satan say to you? Did he point somewhere and say to you, "This is
right? This is the spot here for you."
And he pointed to a spot.
Yeah.
He said, "This is a spot for you."
Right, and that's when obviously I knew it wasn't for me, right? And how to get out, and the way I get out and woke up is these souls that I had chosen forgiveness for were there to lift me out of this pit, and that's kind of how the dream.
That's how the dream ended, is all those guys that you had the choice condemn or save.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of white light lifting me up out of the hole in the ground.
Okay. In Dante's Inferno, the bottom circle was pride, but in your dream it was
like betrayal.
Betrayal.
Or treachery.
Yeah. And I think what I've noticed from you, Lukas, is you are a very loyal person. Your friends, when you make friends with someone, you are a friend and you are a loyal friend. I don't know if it's a result of you seeing that the bottom of that circle was betrayal, because obviously the opposite of loyalty, right, is betrayal.
Right. Yeah, maybe. I never thought of that. I just think that dream scared me a lot. It was not something I really wanted to talk about. A fear of being seen as a crazy person or a plagiarizer,
right?
But and another scene that sticks in my head is when I got to the bottom. It was like I think I had a moment where I was there with God, and God told me to look up, and it was like. If you can imagine this, imagine looking up into a dark sky and you see an visible but invisible plane, and it's everyone's spiritual level. And you can see above that, you can see into heaven and the glory shining down. But all of mankind was at the same level. And I said, well, why is that? And then the scripture that God or whatever angel was with me was, well, all have sinned and they all fell short of God's glory. And so from that moment on, it was revelatory, because I always thought, well, a murderer or a rapist or whatever is worse than anything I've done, right?
Right.
But the reality is we're all on the same level, and we need God to reach down and that's where the grace and salvation comes in.
Right.
When I saw that, it was like, wow, it's very humbling, very much shattered my perceptions of spiritual figures like you, or Craig Englert, or these people that have spoken into our lives that I hold in high esteem. Not that I don't hold them in high esteem, but just to realize, wow, we're all in need of the same exact thing.
Right.
Like we're never gonna make it up there without him reaching down and grabbing us.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that scene in itself, it really sticks in my mind.
I've never heard this before.
Yeah. That was I don't know at what point but I just remember that scene of being told, well, look up and see, and it was like a revelatory moment of, wow, okay, so don't. I think my takeaway from that is just, I think I was a very judgy person in my youth, and if I didn't jive with something, I was a complainer, a hater, whatever you want to call it. And I just remember being very strongly opinionated and outwardly so. And I think that pushed people away maybe from wanting to be friends with me. But ultimately, because if I want to sit and judge, right, that's a very natural thing for humans to do. But the reality is, after I saw what I saw, I said, well, there's no way, because I'm on the same level as all these other people,
Right.
and here we all are. And so I think that was a moment for me where I just realized, okay, well, I need to become somebody that's not very prideful, and to do away with thinking that I'm better or I've experienced more, so I know more.
Yeah.
And all of that now, I view it as a gift, a perspective.
Right.
And sometimes that gift can feel like, because if you knew everything, right? Let's just say you knew everything there was to know about everything, right? Your life would be miserable, right? And there'd be no mystery, there'd be no sense of wonder,
Right.
and there'd be none of that, right? And so, because I used to pride myself on being able to figure things out, and for better or for worse, I think God has gifted me with a high-functioning brain that thinks quickly and thinks deeply about almost everything. And so that in itself can be a burden, where it's like too much brain activity, right?
Yeah. Oh, right. You really overthink. I think so much, right?
But then on the flip side, recognizing all that, it also makes it easy, because once I can do away with my own pride and ego and realize that I'm no better, but I can be loving and cheerful and be giving of myself and my time, I think that's the real path to enlightenment, as some other religions would say, or nirvana. That's what's going to bring on that feeling of fulfillment that I think a lot of, like we were saying at the beginning, a lot of people in my generation don't have that. And it's like you check all these boxes, and I feel like I've seen it so many times where somebody is let's say mildly Christian, right?
Mildly.
Yeah. they have a good job, they get married, they have some children, and at some point it all falls apart, and you wonder, well, how does that even happen?
Right.
You on the surface you think, well, this guy's got this, he's got that, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, blah blah blah, and now he's divorced and alone. And it's like, well,
How did that happen?
how does that happen?
Yeah.
And because truly the things that we have in life that we've set up as success, it isn't enough. I don't think it's enough for us to sit back on our laurels and go, okay, I'm done enough, I am fully content. There's this divine factor that's been put in us that is crying out for nourishment.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think for a long time, I don't want to even say if I knew that, but maybe I knew that and I wanted to ignore it. Because another thing I wanted to mention about when you talked about sharing the gospel, let's say, with somebody that's more secular, and how sometimes quickly an air of uncomfortability rises up.
Mm-hmm.
I think what that is anybody that has spent any time learning about Jesus or the Bible, it does cost you something. If you agree and say, okay, I want to be a follower of Jesus,
I'm in.
yeah,
It
you're going to have to change in some way, in some capacity, right?
Why do you say that, though?
Well, because everyone is selfish, right? And we're all selfish.
So that inherent self-centeredness is going to change.
Yeah, because there's so many things about the kingdom of God and the way that Jesus sets it up is like, okay, well, you need to serve all.
Well,
you know.
Well, the reality is, the Christianity, unlike any world religion, Christianity is change. When you become a follower of Jesus, and he puts his spirit in you, immediately something is different.
Yeah.
Because now you got this connection with God's consciousness, and now you got these thoughts coming at you. And one of the things that I've heard people say, that when they have that born again experience, that experience with God, that all of a sudden somebody's messing with them. Someone's putting these thoughts, and suddenly, you know.
Well, you just become aware of a whole reality that maybe you were completely oblivious to.
Right.
And it does. I think it puts pressure on your soul.
Well, and the other thing too is, if in fact we are going to be members of God's family,
mm-hmm.
then we are going to be like him.
Yeah.
And Peter says in his letter, we share of the divine nature, that we actually can share the divine nature. And everything I read and what I see is God's divine nature starts off with being other-centered.
Exactly.
And so that's a huge step for us to get from our self-centered ways to now thinking about the people around us. You know, when Jesus was asked what's the greatest law, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And then he added, and the second one's like it, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, 1A. Love your neighbor as yourself.
And so, wow, what a challenge that we would actually go from thinking what's best for us to...
Well, I mean, really think about that. It's so simple, but if you think about actually doing that is a very challenging thing to suddenly take on.
It's going to cost you, right?
Yeah. I mean, really, you know, I don't take my neighbor's trash cans in every time, right? I do it sometimes if I'm out there. But just think, right? In every little interaction, if you thought of the other people and did what you would do for yourself for them, right?
All right. Now, last year or 2 years ago, they added a lane on 43rd Avenue coming from Route 60 down to Aviation. But
double merge lane on the way to work and on the way home.
Okay, and it's like, my reaction was always, these guys coming down the left lane, coming into the merge lane, trying to cut in front of me. I'm not going to let them cut in front of me. I mean, how? And finally, I mean, it took me months, I think, to get over that, to where I'll let them in. It's going to cost me an extra 15, 20 seconds of getting to work on time, you know. And I'm so much more at ease. I got to tell you, folks, it was a challenge for me, okay?
Yeah.
But it was a great opportunity for us to actually put into action this concept that we're going to be courteous to the people around us and make room for them. And in this case, slow down a little bit so they can pull in front of us.
Yeah.
And in our basic human nature, we don't want to put anybody in front of us.
Why are you doing that? Right. And it's crazy. I mean, driving is a perfect example, because I'm in this little box, my own little world, and it's like, I'm trying to be considerate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the second someone's not considerate to me, all these feelings,
they rise up.
They're right there at the surface, ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, oh, wow, am I really going to commit a road rage act right now?
And it's easily...
And you feel so justified, and you feel all these things.
Yeah.
Another thing that, in regards to my generation and the ones after, is just, I really feel like we've gotten to a point in our culture, especially Americans, where it is so normal for people to walk in the coffee shop and they go, oh, hey, how's it going? Good. How are you doing? Good. And it says up, 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 uppity, up, up. You know, everything's a feel-good situation. and don't you dare interject something challenging or dare life changing even, right?
To
Then we want to
upset that balance,
right.
right?
No, we want to have this feel good interaction, and it's become so it is really fake. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because if everybody answered the question, well, how are you doing? Honestly, A, it's a 5 minute conversation minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And B, everybody thinks, well, nobody cares, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to take the people pleasing route.
All right. So how do you respond when someone say, "How's it going, Luke?"
Well, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
If I'm working the register and there's a line, I follow suit. But I do go out of my way to say I hope you have a good week.
Yeah.
After I'm done, serving them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something maybe a little different than have a good day. I hope you have a good week. I hope the rest of this week is better.
Yeah. And actually just saying that it's you're pronouncing almost a blessing on them.
Right.
And the Bible tells us that when our words, we can bless people, we can esteem them, we can give them respect just with our words,
Yeah.
And to do that, I've had so many people, Luke, when I say, well, just may you have a good day, or like what you're saying, have a good week, or even if you ask them the question and they say, well, my neck is really bothering me. You know?
And then you have an opportunity.
Yeah, and
can I say a quick prayer for you? Or I'll be praying for you if it's very busy.
Okay. Today I went to our favorite tire shop.
It goes.
And the manager there was sitting and talking to me about my bumpy tires and my shocks. Zach. And Zach just had surgery. Achilles tendon came apart.
Oh, wow.
And he showed me the scar, and he says, I've got some neuropathy in my foot because the nerve is reconnecting or something, And I just felt, golly, this guy is so young. And he said, come on, let's go out and look at your car. And we actually got down on the pavement. We were sitting down, and he's rubbing his hands over. I thought, this guy's a real friend,
Yeah.
And he got up and he said, well, it's going to cost you this amount of money to get this fixed. And I said, Zach, can I pray for you? I just put my hand on his shoulders. I said, Lord, would you just heal that Achilles tendon and just let that nerve reconnect? And it took me 20 seconds to do that. I think Zach was really touched by that. And
probably the only person that offered that.
And we are the representatives of the King.
Yeah.
We're the ambassadors, right? And so what should the ambassadors do but invoke the King's name and invoke the King's power? That's what ambassadors do. They go to a place, they have the rights to speak for the King, they have the power to make agreements.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm an ambassador. I can agree with Zach that God is going to heal him.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Luke, when I first did that, this was when we first opened our cafe. And one of our customers was an older guy named Fred, and he was a nice guy, and he came in one day, and he was just really down and out. And I said, Fred, what's going on? He said, oh, and my doctor just gave me a diagnosis of my lungs are losing their ability to absorb oxygen, and he only gave me three years to live, and I felt so much compassion for him. It was just like, golly. So I just put my hand on his shoulders, and I said, Lord, please give Fred many, many more years, Lord, and heal what's going on. And by golly, 3 years went by, and Fred said, I made it past the 3 years. And then a couple years later, he came in and was carrying a little oxygen bottle, and then I saw him a year later, and his wife was walking with him and bringing him in. And then I missed out and didn't see him for a while, and his sons came.
Yeah.
And they said, well, our dad passed, but he spoke often about that moment you took to pray with him. And that really meant a lot. And that really changed me.
Yeah.
In me being the ambassador for the King.
When I think one of the most beautiful things about that is that everything about that is a good thing, right? Think about it. You let the power of God that touched you at one point move through you to bless this man, and he was blessed for it. On the flip side, you were also blessed for involving yourself in that.
I saw something change.
Yeah. And then and I think that's the part about this whole thing that people don't embrace or realize with the whole love your neighbor as yourself, because stuff like that right there, there's no other shoe to drop. It is purely a good thing for both people, and
What?
it's like this sense of this 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 piece of divinity that's within all of us. You're feeding that, you know.
I think, yeah, I think you summed it. You put your finger on it, because what I realized is your mother and I, just doing the work that we did for so many, I mean, over 3 decades.
Yeah, my whole life.
With this indigenous group. And we look at, did we really make a difference in their lives? And we sort of question that, but it really has made a difference in our life.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, regardless of anything else, that's the hidden double blessing that I think you don't realize it when you haven't experienced it. But once you've experienced it, it's like you can't go back to just only living for yourself, because you know.
Well, I find the most miserable people on earth are those who have had experiences with God, but they're momentarily off the path. They've resorted to habitual behavior.
Yeah.
They're miserable because that spirit in them is just not being fed. It's the connection with God is a very tenuous one, and that part of them, that spark of divinity that God places in it, is not being fed. It's not.
Yeah. And it needs to be.
It really needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And when you talk about mental health, you know, and it's worse than ever, and it's actually something people openly speak about now, which I think is great. But I mean, what a psychiatrist God is, right? He knew what us poor humans would need, and how powerful our brain is for the rest of our existence. Really, I mean, really, you know.
Well, look what he gave us, Luke. First of all, he gave us forgiveness.
Yeah.
And this is the grace of God. And once you've experienced the grace of God, everything changes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, I think, they would think of themselves as followers of Jesus, but in reality, they've never really experienced the grace of God. They haven't felt a need for the grace of God in their life. They're pretty much doing it all on their own, right? But once you experience the need and you realize what God's done for you, then everything changes.
Yeah.
And anxiety, depression, okay? So God has given us forgiveness and given us grace, but he's also given us his person to inhabit us, you know?
You know, it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine, Andrew, and his favorite movie. We were talking about movies in relation to what humans are stoked about. It started off as a funny conversation, and then we both realized, well, there's a lot of movies about revenge, you know?
Right.
And think about one of the greatest films, The Gladiator. That's my friend Andrew's favorite film, and probably it's in my top 5.
And it's one of my favorites too, right?
And an excellent film, but at its core, right, it's a story of revenge / redemption, right? And we joked to each other. We said, well, how unentertaining of a movie would it be? Maximus gets to his house, his family's dead, and he decides, okay, well, I'm gonna forgive Commodus and move on with my life, right? There'd be no film there, right? But on the flip side, we went from there laughing, thinking, oh, well, that'd be kind of funny, right? He becomes a Christian and forgives Commodus and just stays in Spain and farms, right? What a funny anticlimactic movie that would be.
Right.
But then also, why are humans so not obsessed, but we love a good revenge story, right?
Right. Well, we love justice. We want to see justice done.
And that's the conclusion we came to. Is that, maybe it's not so much revenge, but it's the only way we can get justice as man. And then I took it a step further and then realized, well, maybe that's part of this little divinity in us, right? Because we know as believers that that Jesus wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's the Redeemer, and so maybe there's a perverted, twisted part in our humanness that goes, well, we should be the ones. We're the redeemers, right? We're the revengers. We're the. Right. But all that to say, that redemption that we all so crave has already been given to us.
Right. J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, right?
Another top fiver.
Okay. He was criticized by his academic contemporaries for writing what they called fairy tales, right?
Yeah.
And so he writes an essay, which I read a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's online,
on
fairy tales or on fairy stories or something. And in it he says, throughout his study of ancient literature, there's these different themes that are constantly being represented. First of all, that you meet characters that are not of this life, that are extraterrestrials. You need characters
gods
outside of the life, right? That's a theme of, we all have a desire to do that. He said another desire is that we escape death, that these stories of escaping death, okay? The third theme is that we meet the greatest love, that we have the greatest love affair. And the last quality or last theme that is constant in these ancient and stories is we want to see justice.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why, as a follower of Jesus, he writes these books, and we see the movies now, but we see all of the themes. We see the greatest love between God and us. We see escaping death. Death doesn't have a curse on us anymore. We're going to live forever. We see having of course, interaction with people not from our world, angels and God himself. And then, of course, we know justice will be done, And I had a conversation with a lawyer this weekend at this event, the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where my friend Joe Tanner was inducted. And one of the friends that he invited is a lawyer who's a guy who, for the last 30 years, has filed suit against the Roman Catholic Church for all the sexual abuse things that they've done.
Wow.
And he's written a book about it that he told me about, and he's one of the leading litigators and against the Catholic Church. And he grew up as a Catholic, was an altar boy, and we were having this conversation on the beach at Cocoa Beach when they fired the rocket.
Oh, okay.
Okay, literally, I'm standing there with his wife having this conversation. He's telling me. I said, is the church corrupt? He said, from top to bottom. And he kind of went on. And I said, well, let me just say this. I work with a lot of Catholics in Honduras and Nicaragua, and even here in the U.S., that are true believers. They have the Spirit of God in them, and they would be shocked to know the things that you know about this abuse, this systematic corruption that's within the organization of the church. And I said, where does that put you as a former altar boy? Would you consider yourself a believer in God, a follower of Jesus? He said, absolutely not. And I said, why? And he said, look at all the abuse. Look at all that's going on. And I put my hand on his arm and I said, let me just tell you something. There will be justice.
Yeah.
God is going to bring these clowns, these despicable people that have done these things, and there will be justice. I want to assure you, don't abandon your faith in God, because this is something that in his book he says he's going to do. But our movies is, we want to be the guys to enact the revenge and bring justice, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a perversion of something divine, I think. Yeah.
There's a great theme that we are called to set things that are wrong in our society, set them right.
Yeah.
But we cannot be the revenge takers, because all of us are going to stand before the Lord.
Yeah.
We're going to get the video replay of our life. He's going to give us our desires. If we don't want to be with him, he'll send us to a place where we're not with him for eternity.
Yeah.
That's my definition of hell.
It's funny too, because the thought an image that flashes into my mind when I'm mad driving and somebody does something or something happens in the Count of Monte Cristo
Oh yeah.
with his rock, what he carves into the wall.
God will give me justice,
Yeah,
right?
God will give me justice.
Right.
And it's funny because that's the famous revenge story in humanity, right? The Count of Monte Cristo.
Right. When Alexander Dumas wrote that, right, you know there's that theme going on because this is a man that was going to just seek justice on each of the three guys that put him in that jail, right? And very meticulously planned it out, you know.
Yeah.
And yet he ends the scene, he's back in his cell, and the last scene of the movie is, God will give me justice. And he realized that all was really for naught, that all he really wanted was to be with the bride.
Yeah.
And now his son, you know.
Right.
And his friends. That's really the only thing in life that really matters. But it was a great movie.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It was such a great movie. But that image of the scratch in the rock, God will give me justice. I mean, I think that often. And
it was indented so much that whatever rock, he's just writing it again and again, and it's embedded thick, like an inch into the rock, you know. That God will give me justice.
Yeah, wow. I've subdued that side of me a bit, but growing up, I had a strong sense of justification.
Right, you did, right.
When I felt wronged, it was like I was not going to back down.
Right.
And now I'm looking for opportunities to back down.
Right. Well, all that to say, I just hope that some of these words that have been spoken today may be helping you in your own issues of dealing with justice issues, of what your goals in life might be, what maybe your sources of anxiety and depression might be. Because for us here at the Rio Coco Cafe, that we serve a creator that loves us and gave himself up for us. I mean, for God so loved the world, he gave his only son, okay? God is very other-centered. And as Lukas pointed out, it goes so much against our own internal nature. We're such self-centered people. But the people that have impacted our culture the most are those who actually grasp the idea, who have allowed the Spirit of God to work through them, and they really live their life for other people.
Yeah.
These are the ones historically that have changed our world in so many ways, in medicine and science and education, in social services, and just relief work. I mean, we have met so many people and working with refugees over the last 30, 40 years that are just capable people that could be making millions of dollars if they wanted to. Like Jack Dyer, like Papa Jack.
Yeah.
Papa Jack gave up a multi-million-dollar engineering business to serve Mosquito Indian refugees on the Coco River. And by golly, his rewards are great. He is such, you mentioned Papa Jack's name to that generation of Mosquito Indians, they will all remember the time he brought them food in his airplane. He took one of them to the hospital. He pulled money out of his pocket and gave it to him. I watched him do it so many times. You know, these are guys that leave an impact. And if, as Jesus says, if we want to be great in this world, we first must become a servant.
Right. And one more thing I did want to say is just maybe, and I still find myself in this place often, but maybe you are somebody that is mildly Christian, but you haven't found fulfillment in your young adult life yet. I just want to encourage you that maybe it's time to start holding the door open for people and going out of your way for your neighbors, you know. Life is meant to be lived serving and being useful to people and making yourself available. And for me, there were so many years in my 20s that I felt unfulfilled and miserable. And when I look back, those were the times where I was most caught up in doing things just to make myself happy.
Or things you thought would make you happy.
Yeah, exactly. Versus now, I'm trying to fill my time being useful to my family and the people that work for us and my friends in different places around the world. and my perspective has shifted in a way.
Oh, it most definitely has.
And through that, I found myself sleeping very well, and being much less restless. And it's something I can't fully articulate, really. But I know that it started with me deciding that I wasn't priority number one, you know? And it's super counterintuitive, especially if you're somebody with a vocation working, which is common for all of us. It's so common to be self-serving. And of course, you got to build your life and do things that are functional and are going to provide for you. But within that, there's so much opportunity to stretch yourself spiritually.
Yeah.
And through that stretching, you're going to find a lot of fulfillment, I think. So.
Well, a good cup of Rwanda coffee. Till the next time, serving a cup of life.
We'll see you guys
Aloha.
next time. Aloha.